You're listening to Jet Nation Radio, the official podcast of JetNation.com, the largest independent fan site in the NFL. Be sure to check out our forums and talk all things Jets with thousands of other diehard Jets fans. Now, to get you up to date on all the latest Jets news, notes, and quotes, here are your hosts, Dylan Terriman and Alex Varallo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Jet Nation Radio. This is Alex Varallo, your host tonight, joined by Dylan Terriman. Dylan, how we doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. A bit conflicted as we get down the stretch here this season, whether I want to root for draft picks or wins down the stretch. So I would say I'm very conflicted.
Yes, there was a little bit of conversation going on, and I think Glenn put out a poll today with that exact conversation, and I am curious to see how that's going to turn out tomorrow with where our fans are looking at this point. Are we nailing it in, or are we still kind of holding on to what little hope may be left in the season? Dealing with a little bit of a head cold, everybody, so I do apologize if I don't sound as normally clear as I usually do. But the show must go on, and we're forging through it. Another week of Jet Nation Radio, and we're talking about, yet again, another loss. This one hurts, maybe more so than some of, the other losses that we've experienced this year. And, maybe it's differently for some, but for me, going through this game and being upbeat through that first half and thinking, wow, this team is finally getting, their what together. And all signs were pointing up. And it was a tale of two halves. The Jets fall to the Miami Dolphins 31-24. And it's a tale of two halves. A first half where the Jets looked very competitive, and we were most definitely in the game. And then in the second half, things really, really fell apart rather fast and brief. Dylan, you put together some great notes and some really good nuggets from there. So why don't you go ahead and break down what you saw from this weekend's game and go ahead and give us your insight on how you feel, why things were working well in the beginning and why did things fall apart for this team in the second half?
Yeah, I think first off, when you look offensively, you look at offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur, and he kind of emptied the bag of tricks in the first half with, I counted at least 3 trick plays. Maybe there was some more scripted in that didn't quite end that way, but they had the reverse to Berrios that it looked like he was going to pass it, but ended up running for the touchdown. You had the reverse pass from Berrios to Wilson, in which he found Griffin wide open, which set up the touchdown. And then they had the 3rd and 15, I'm going to call it a hook and Hail Mary, where Crowder caught it and tossed it back to Berrios. And, those are the types of things you like to see before the team is eliminated from playoff contention in December. You want to see that stuff in October and November. But it's nice that you see it in year one in the offense, because you know that next year they're just going to build upon that and use it more often and earlier on in the season as the team gets more comfortable. And then Zach Wilson, he had a great first drive. He was hitting his targets. He was decisive. He had a couple third down drops. I think the one by Keelan Cole was, the most frustrating because it was a great pass by Wilson. And I thought he was, in a rhythm, and that kind of stopped the momentum a little bit. He had a great scramble play, which it was all freelancing in the third quarter on a 3rd and 4. I think he made 4 or 5 defenders miss. And then, of course, he had the strip sack in the fourth quarter, which McDermott absolutely got annihilated. And the pressure came off within, less than 2 seconds on Zach. It looked like he had a play opened. I think it was to Mims, maybe to Crowder on that side, but he had no chance. The defender got there too quick. He had a great first half. The second half kind of dropped off, only ended with 52 passing yards in the second half. 170 for the day. Jamison Crowder, he had 6 first-half targets. The next highest in the first half was only 2, so he was getting a lot of looks early. He then only got 2 targets in the second half, which was kind of frustrating because it seems like Zach likes to target the shorter separation type receivers and, Crowder, Berrios, Elijah Moore when he was healthy. So it was unfortunate that he couldn't get Crowder going in the second half. Michael Carter, he returned from the injury after missing 3 games and only had 20 total yards, which is really upsetting. 18 on the ground and then only 1 target for 2 yards in the passing game. And then I know this isn't solely a Zach Wilson stat. It's very much a team stat, but the Jets were 3-11 on third down, which is really unacceptable at this stage in the game when they should be at least around the 50%. And I went back and I said it last week, and now I'm adding on to that total, and they're 11 for 57 on third down since Zach Wilson has returned, which is 19.2%. So unacceptable there. And then flip over to the defense. Ashytn Davis, I think if he could play Tua Tagovailoa every single week of the season, he would not only be a Pro Bowler, All-Pro, but he would probably break the record for interceptions because it seems like he has Tua's number. He had a pick on the second drive on the first play, and then he almost had a second pick, if not for Bryce Hall, tipping it, trying to get it for himself. I think the next drive or a few plays later even. I thought the secondary, it was their best collective effort. They had 4 passes defensed in the first half, and they ended with 8. I think Eccles and Hall both had 3. Davis and Riley ended with 1, so it's nice to see all of them getting a little bit of work. Brandon Eccles was a little bit up and down. He was beat by Albert Wilson early, and he had good closing speed to break the pass up, but it was a very short, underthrown pass from Tua, so he was definitely beat. And then he did get beat by Devontae Parker later on in the game. Made up for it, though, and had the pick 6, which I thought he telegraphed Tua right away, and I thought at that moment the Jets were going to win, so that was a great play by him. And then one person I want to highlight in the negative sense, which I don't always like to do, but this ended up costing us the game. It was Delshon Phillips. He was on the goal line play where Christian Wilkins scored the touchdown. He got beat. He was looking in the backfield. His eyes weren't focused on Wilkins slipping out of the back, and he let up the catch, so that's what put the Dolphins up 31-24, and the Jets couldn't recover. In the second half, they had back-to-back long drives defensively that led to 2 touchdowns, which erased the Jets' lead that they had, and they let the Dolphins run for a season-high 183 rushing yards, which it was their season high at like 160-something, so they absolutely shattered their season-high total there, so not a good look for the defense again. And then special teams, surprisingly, on an upswing the last 2 weeks. Eddie Pinheiro was 4 for 4 on his kicks today, 7 for 7 since signing with the team. Pinnock had a bonehead penalty as a gunner that cost them 15 yards early on in the first half. Braden Mann had a really nice kick at the end of that first half that was downed inside the 3-yard line, which pretty much eliminated the Dolphins from scoring any points going into the half. And then they were able to capitalize on the muffed punt by the Dolphins. So all around, the special teams is trending upward. So, it's tough when you lose games like this because not only are they divisional games and this is what you want to see, like you want to see competitive football out of these games, which we did. Unfortunately, it was only for the first half, not the second. And you just want to see a collective effort all the way through. I think you can't really put the blame on one person, especially not Zach Wilson in the first half. And the second half, really, he was really just making plays wherever he could. So, unfortunately, not a win. It was competitive, but not the result everybody was looking for.
Great breakdown there, Dylan. Some good stuff there, and I'm just kind of going to recap a little bit from some of the things that you mentioned, and some things that stood out to me in that game. And it's interesting. While it's on my head, I want to talk a little bit about the Ashytn Davis thing. It's kind of funny how the first interception that he made was probably the more difficult play, being that it was a tip drill, he had to lay out for it. And then the second one was almost a gimme. And like you said, Bryce Hall, just reacting to the ball, making a good pass deflection, trying to complete the play. And he just, muffs up that one. And, people will look at the stat line and say, Ashytn Davis, had himself a really, really good game. And, I come to think outside of those two plays where, there was a turnover and a probable turnover, he did not do very well in run support. That's something that I've noticed not only in this game, but, if you go back to that New Orleans game as well, and numerous times throughout the season, it just seems like he's not in the right position. He really needs to work on his open field tackling. I understand that, this guy is, he likes to generate speed and deliver a big hit. That's what a lot of safeties like to do. But if you're overzealous or if you're too aggressive, it can really, really bite you, especially if you have, agile, playmakers on the opposite side that make you look bad. And there was just some plays that, he completely whiffed and was out of position. And you really can't have that. The Jets really, really made Duke Johnson look like, the running back of old. And perhaps it's because, the running back situation in Miami was pretty bad, as far as the COVID situation. They were able to get Myles Gaskin back, but he seemed like he was in a limited role. And Duke Johnson, why wouldn't you continue to keep going to him as he's getting 5, 6, 7 yards a clip? I'm not going to say that, they were opening up wide, running lanes as far as, you could fit a truck through, but they were opening up lanes and the Jets could not answer for it. The defensive line was not, generating enough, run support at the line of scrimmage, and our linebackers, mainly Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley, up and down with their play, mainly down. We know that they're good in the run support, but little room to be desired with the pass coverage. And, and this particular week, they didn't look like they were, doing that great as far as rush protection. So very, very odd, very, very disappointing to see this defense struggle the way that they did. And the second half, Zach was pretty much under duress for, every single series. And we have had some lineup changes at the offensive line. George Fant being out, his presence was definitely felt with him being out of the lineup. And, again, just, really, really frustrating to see one aspect of the team doing well while the other struggling. And, special teams seems to be getting themselves together. So one thing's going well, but, we never seem to be balanced. Jets are most definitely off balanced at this point. And it's going to be difficult moving forward with these next few games because Jacksonville looks like a game that we have a good opportunity of winning. But then you go ahead and you look at, the Buffalo game and you look at the Tampa game and, we pretty much can draw up losses there. In the event that Tampa benches their entire starting team because they're playoff bound, that would probably be the only scenario that would, surprise me, surprise the fans with pulling out a W before the end of the season. So, as I'm looking at this, the beginning of the game here, and you're seeing these things unravel, and the Jets make an early turnover, which we haven't really seen them do. They're putting themselves in good field position. They capitalized on this a couple times. But to put together, 50 yards of total offense in the second half, and the only points that you were able to generate come off of Brandon Echols' pick six, that's just really, really poor. And that cannot happen moving forward. And I understand we're not playing with all the guys that we started with week one, but, we can't use that as an excuse at this point. Every team has had injuries or lost, critical players at critical positions, and you just got to figure out a way to work around that and continue to progress and continue to be competitive. And, we've lost some players. We've added some players. We thought that we would be getting a boost with Michael Carter. he ends up with, like you said, only 20 yards on the day. I think that was a huge disappointment. You know, the Jets did try to run the ball 20 times, you know, excluding the 4 carries from Zach Wilson. And I have to say, you know, as you said, he did whatever he could to try to make a play. You know, he's scrambling left, you know, slipping tackles here, moving to his right, throwing across his body, things that you really shouldn't do, but he did, and he got away with it. And it ends up being, you know, one of those, you know, wow plays. So, you know, Zach has shown some better presence as far as being in the pocket. Unfortunately, his offensive line continues to struggle with giving him, you know, the opportunity to go through his reads and find the right guy. So if there's anything to be learned from this game, the Jets absolutely need to find, you know, not only players that are reliable offensively, that don't drop passes and can create separation. They need to find reliable linemen that can give Zach more time. And then defensively, they need to get more athletic from the linebacker position. Going in just trying to find one pass rusher is definitely not the way to do it. Let's find 2 or 3 guys that we can rotate in and out. You know, I like what Bryce Huff is doing. I'm hopeful that Carl Lawson comes back at full strength and can add to that. But I want at least another 2 guys to come into the fold next season that can contribute because what we're working with right now is not going to get it done. And the 3-11 record validates that statement. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this team. And, you know, I definitely feel more disappointed with the defense than I do offense. I don't know how you feel about that, Dylan. You know, because I was just anticipating Robert Saleh to come in here, implement his defense, and seeing some of the pieces that we have with Quinnen Williams and C.J. Mosley, you know, Marcus May until he got hurt, and, you know, Bryce Hall, who's emerging into a good player. There's good players in that on the defensive side, but collectively they're just not really working together as a unit. And who knows if it's the level of talent that we have on this team, which it could be, or it could be that Robert Saleh's system and his scheme is not, you know, coming to fruition out in the field and being something that is a viable defense right now. You know, they got another year to work on this, so next year I guess will be more telling on what has been learned and what they've been able to build and progress on. But, you know, at the moment right now, this is definitely unsatisfactory football that we're seeing. We've talked a little bit about the Miami game, and if you have a thought, go for it, Dylan, and then we have to go down this injury list and things that have been going on. It's unfortunate, but we do have to do it. But go ahead, Dylan.
Yeah, I was going to say, coming into the year, you thought that the offense would have its struggles and the defense, you know, being backed by a defensive-minded head coach with a lot of pedigree like Rob Saleh has, that they would be, you know, kind of holding up the team for the first part of the season into the winter months. And it seems like it's kind of the opposite. The offense has to do as much as they can to prevent the defense from being on the field because they're the liability at this point. And I'm glad you brought up Bryce Huff because I do think that with this rotation on the D-line that Rob Saleh likes to deploy, that they have no other choice but to go out and find at least one more edge rusher to complement, even when Carl Lawson is back. Lawson, JFM, Huff, I think they need 1, if not 2 more names in that mix to really, you know, get this defense functioning at full strength.
Yeah. And you know, we'll talk a little bit more in the later weeks about, you know, certain players that are on the fence. We'll put in a segment about who we feel needs to come back into this 22 roster and who we can, you know, part ways with. You know, I think we'll get a lot of fun with that. That's something that I've been meaning to talk to you about, and we'll have to plan that into a future show because we have a lot of 1-year contracts on this roster, and you know, there are a few guys that we thought would be, you know, consistent, productive players on this team, and we really haven't seen a lot of that, you know, right off the bat. You know, Keelan Cole is one of those guys that I was anticipating a lot more And I don't think it's necessarily his fault. I think whatever role has been carved out for him in this offense just makes him, if he's like the third, read in a particular pass play, our offensive line is not giving Zach Wilson enough time to get to the first read, the second read, then the third read, or the fourth read. And, where he's penciled in at right now, I think that could be possibly why we're not seeing as much production from him. And also, with the personnel changes that they've had from each week to week, it's been a little bit of a head scratcher, I will say this, and we chatted a little bit last night, seeing Zach Wilson work the line of scrimmage, making audibles for that zero coverage, blitz defense or whatever the Miami Dolphins like to do to try to put pressure on the quarterback and show one thing and then, do another thing. For instance, there was a play where they had 8 players on the line of scrimmage, and they had nobody in coverage as far as the deep safety was concerned. And it looked like they were going with an all-out blitz. They end up rushing 3 and dropping 8, and, we could not adjust to it. So Miami put together a very good game plan. The Jets did have a plan to attempt to try to beat or try to unravel what Miami was going to do. And some plays did work, They got a little pass out to Trayvon Wesco, and, it's amazing what happens when you give a big guy that's 6'5", 265 pounds the ball, and you put him out in space, what he can do. God, I've been waiting for that for about 3 years, and I just don't understand why we can't give a guy like him the ball 3 or 4 times a game, because he can create a mismatch. It was shown in the little things that he did, and he did create some decent runs for our running backs as well. But it just really, really seems like at this point in time, he's just not being mixed in, and due to the lack of tight ends that we have on the current roster, it looks like he's been forced into the situation here. So, Wesco might be one of those people we talk about in that segment that I was recently talking about on who's going to be here for 2022 and who won't. Just not too sure, what his future is going to be. But I kind of wish that he would have a role moving forward. But at the moment, I have doubts. But again, seeing a little bit of progression with Zach Wilson controlling that line of scrimmage gave me, put a smile on my face. Right? That is showing a little bit of improvement. And like you said, with the trick plays that LaFleur is calling, at this point, we're not being a vanilla pedestrian-style offense. We are taking some chances, so I do like that. Last year, the last 2 years, we saw a very, very conservative, poor offense.
That would have never happened.
Yeah, we would have never seen plays like that at all. Mm-hmm. So to see, him saying, okay, what else do we got to lose? And the one play where, they threw the ball to Crowder over the middle, and then he throws it, back to Berrios in a screen formation, and, that's what razzle-dazzle football is the way I see it. And I say razzle-dazzle because I went to West Army football camp as a kid, and every year they put together a bunch of teams at camp, and we played razzle-dazzle ball, and you could basically lateral, forward lateral, everything was like, legal in this style of gameplay, and it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. And to see that, I was just kind of like, whoa, what is this guy doing over here? Ever since LaFleur got up into the booth, it seems like a lot has changed as far as what he's seeing in his play calling. So hopefully these are little things that we can build on. And, as we begin to see more and more of Zach Wilson's development, we'll be able to see more of those fun style of plays come from Mike LaFleur. So clearly he has probably another, chapter of plays in his playbook that we have not even seen yet. And, hopefully as our quarterback play gets better, we'll be able to see some of that stuff, because it did look pretty cool. And, had Keelan Cole on that one wide receiver pass connected with Zach Wilson. It would have been a lot of fun to see. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. It probably worked out, when they were practicing it, every day. But unfortunately, when it came to Sunday, they couldn't convert that one. So some good things, some bad things. But now we're going to move on to the injury news and the transaction segment. Okay, seeing your message now. Okay, Dylan, didn't realize you dropped there.
Yeah, there we go.
Away.
Yeah,
You're
I
back?
don't know what happened.
Okay,
I just lost it. Yep, just lost it for a second.
You got me
but I'm
nervous
back.
there. I thought we were going to have another, crash and burn on Blog Talk, but not on the wood.
Right.
I might have just put the voodoo on the show right now. But yeah, unfortunately, we do have to go through some injury news and some transaction stuff. Dylan, you put together a little list yesterday. I'm trying to find it here. Do you have access to that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on my Google Doc.
Okay.
I can read down the names real quick. I can start with the COVID names. We got a laundry list of names that were added to the COVID list. So I didn't even notice this one before the game over the weekend. Foley Fatukasi was put on the COVID list, which explains why Jonathan Marshall played so much. And then Saleh said on Monday that he added 5 more names. Let's see. Tanzel Smart off the practice squad. John Franklin Myers, so that's a starter. Sherrod Niesman, who was kind of playing a starter role with Elijah Riley getting hurt. Lamar Jackson, the cornerback, off the practice squad, and then Vincent Smith, wide receiver. So a good list of names that are put on the list. They only took one name off the list, which is Mike White. So he'll probably serve as the quarterback 3 for the rest of the season. And then in other injury news, they had placed Ryan Griffin on IR today with a knee injury, effectively ending his season with only 3 games left. Update on Elijah Riley was that he's in the concussion protocol. Saleh seemed hopeful that they'll get him back this season, possibly this week. They ended up claiming safety Will Parks from the Dolphins earlier today, so it doesn't seem entirely likely that Riley will play or possibly Niesman will play this week, so they're super thin at safety yet again. Quinnen Williams will be limited in practice. They're going to put a harness on him to see what his level of comfort is, but they're hopeful he'll play Sunday. And then George Fant, they're optimistic that he'll play Sunday at left tackle.
Okay. And I'm reading this one, this news update from Ethan Greenberg, the Jets team reporter. Ryan Griffin was put on the injured reserve. I assume that would mean that he's probably done for the year. Good Lord. It looks like Wesco, they don't have any other choice but to play the poor guy, and who knows who's going to be the next guy that comes out of the woodwork here. I think we picked up Dan Brown. Is that a different? Is there a difference between Dan Brown and Daniel Brown?
No, but it's the
I read
same
that.
Dan
I didn't look
Brown.
into it. It's the same Dan Brown. Okay, so we went from Daniel to Dan. Okay, no problem. So
and we got Tardif
Dan Brown,
for free.
That's a familiar face.
Yep.
Okay.
And we got Duvernay Tardif was free. So
there you go. And then there was Yeboah, Kenny Yeboah too. So I'm not sure what his health situation is. I'd imagine that those be our top 3. Now, this is something that seems to be a little alarming. I just retweeted it. I just want to make sure that I come correct here. It was Field Yates, who's known for his updates for fantasy football. He reported 2 hours ago that Elijah Vera Tucker and cornerback Michael Carter was also added to the COVID list. So it looks like we just lost a nickel corner and we lost our starting left guard, who I guess it's debatable as far as the interior lineman. I think he might be playing the best out of everybody. And, clearly I think George Fant is our best offensive lineman as of year to date. So very, very, very interesting. And it's not just us. This is going across the board. Everybody is being affected by this pandemic still.
Absolutely,
Not sure, what the situations are, who's vaxxed, who's not. I know that there's different rules as far as, vaccinated players can come back with 2 days of, negative testing before Sunday. So if that's the case, maybe something changes. It's Tuesday, and we'll have to, look for those Friday updates to see if anything changes. But, yeah, doesn't look too promising as far as, being at full strength yet again. And that is definitely one of the reasons why the Jets have not been so successful this year, is that they have not been able to work with the same unit week in and week out. And, Elijah Vera-Tucker and Michael Carter have been key players to this team, and definitely going to be hurting not having them. So that's the injury news segment here. And, you had mentioned, and I kind of gave a little there, why are we in a lost season, putting out one of our best players in Quinnen Williams and making him force through this injury? I mean, we tip our caps for being a tough guy and, fighting through these things and doing things like that. I mean, at this point, if something happens between now to the end of the season because of these next few games that come up and Quinnen Williams requires shoulder surgery, not only is that going to affect his play style for 2022, but it may also affect his future with this team because he's one of those players that will be coming up for a contract extension very soon, and the Jets need to make a decision if they're going to utilize his fifth-year option. Now, we know how a lot of these first-round picks are within recent years. A lot of these guys ask for extensions before they get to that point. Who knows if Quinnen Williams is going to be one of those people, but I think that the Jets can't get really cute here and gamble with players' health at this point, especially when you're 3-11 and there's no way, no how that we have a postseason. So I'm not too I guess I'm not on board with the decision of pushing out Quinnen when he's, 75, 80%. I just don't know, how that looks. He got injured during the game, and then he was doubtful for his return in this Miami game, and he ends up with, I think, one tackle on the day. So I don't know if he's, we appreciate you coming out there and doing what you have to do, but if you're not going to help us win games and you may hinder yourself further, I don't know if it's a good decision to keep him going. How do you feel about, the Jets, or maybe it's Quinnen, but how do you feel about the Quinnen Williams situation and him playing down the stretch?
I think you have to definitely take it day by day with him and don't rush him back like you're saying and, potentially cause more injury that requires that off-season shoulder surgery, because then you never know what the timetable is for his return to just conditioning in the off-season even could be a big setback for someone that plays on the defensive line and that carries around a lot of weight. So it's definitely a touchy situation that I think they need to be very delicate when they go about it. But I was looking at the fifth-year option rules and where Quinnen would fall into that. So if he's voted into the Pro Bowl, I'm not sure if they announced the rosters yet. If he's voted to the Pro Bowl this year, his fifth-year option would be equal to the transition tag, which is top 10 average salary at the position. So the top 10 players take their average salary. That would be his price. But right now he's in the playtime category, which is one tier below, which means that he had 50% snaps across all 3 seasons. Now, I did the math. If he does not play for the rest of the season, he'd be at about 51% snaps for the Jets total in 2021, which his average would fall below 50% snaps across 3 seasons because he only played 46% of the snaps in one of his first 2 years. So then he would meet the basic requirement for the franchise or the fifth-year option price, which is the top 3 to 25 at the position. So right now it seems like Quinnen Williams is either top 10 if he makes that Pro Bowl, which it seems somewhat likely that he might, or he's in the 3 to 25 salary, which is, well below that top 10 range. So I think money could be in play for Quinnen Williams here, depending on if he plays or not. I'm not sure if that's going into his decision. I'm sure his agent has brought it up at this point because that's what agents do. So, like I said, it's very touchy, and you have to be delicate regardless of what it is because you can't risk further injury to one of your best players.
Absolutely. Yeah, and who was out there that we were talking about? Oh, Bukai Becton. We had the similar kind of scenario there too, and
right. Yep.
Kind of interesting how we were talking about Quinnen Williams possibly returning after Thanksgiving, and here we are the week of Christmas, and for everybody, have a happy holidays. Whatever you celebrate and everything like that. Enjoy yourselves. But, here we are almost a month away from Thanksgiving, and we haven't seen head or hair and haven't had an update. So who knows? Maybe at this point, maybe he and Becton both should take this time to rehab, heal, and get healthy and prepare for next year. Two big pieces on this team, and probably the biggest guys on the roster as well. So I'd like to see them, heavily involved, healthy with the future plans. But, we'll see how this plays out within the next few weeks. And looking at the clock here, we are going to do a little bit of a shorter show tonight. So, Dylan, why don't we transition here and let's talk a little bit about our upcoming opponent, which will be the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. So I guess as far as these rookie quarterbacks are concerned, this is for bragging rights. Are we in Jacksonville for this game? I believe.
Nope, it's home.
No, we have 2 home games and then we're away in Buffalo. So look at that. Okay.
Yep.
So they're coming up to us, the Floridians, into some cold weather after Christmas Day. So what are you thinking? Are we going to have a Christmas spectacular here, or will Tiny Tim not be getting his Christmas present this year?
This is where I'm so conflicted because I feel like, quite frankly, neither team deserves the win just based on how the seasons have gone for them. But you have to look at both franchises individually this year and all the positives that have still come out of Florham Park versus all the storylines and the negatives that have come out of Jacksonville. I mean, not to rub it in their face, but they're kind of a dumpster fire. And coming from a Jets-led podcast, that's pretty sad, So when we're this bad at 3-11 and we have somebody else to kind of dump on, it's nice. But this isn't a game that you can go into the week and say, okay, we can look past the Jaguars because this is an easy W. There's still 53 men on that team that want to get a win regardless of their draft position or whatever. So they're going to come out hungry. They seem to play a little bit better under their interim coach, Darrell Bevell. James Robinson got fed the ball a lot more, and I anticipate that being the case since the Jets can't stop anybody on the ground. So expect a lot of run plays. And then Trevor Lawrence, I mean, like you said, the number 1 versus the number 2. It's been a pretty down season for both Trevor and Zach, but it's kind of been flipped. Zach struggled and then has battled back, and Trevor started off a little bit hot and now has only scored 1 touchdown in the last 7 weeks. So this is a game that the Jets should come out and, hopefully win. And I'm going to say they should win it because this is a team that needs to actually come alive and show progress and play a full 60-minute football game and be balanced like you talked about on all 3 phases, offense, defense, special teams. We can't have one come out and then one falter and then special teams be meh. We have to have it all clicking, even with a team as bad as the Jaguars. So we're favorites for the first time since week 4, 2020 against Denver. That was the Thursday night game where I think Darnold scrambled for 48 yards untouched in the all-black uniforms, and we still ended up losing. So, it's not a game I'm going to say that the Jets will win, but I will say they should win this game.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've seen them play enough poor football to where nobody should feel confident going into this game thinking that this is a lock. Jackson, it's interesting. I remember reading those news clippings about Trevor Lawrence when, things were so bad in that 2020 season. And, I think, was it week 12 or week 13 before we got our first win? We were winless forever. And, Trevor Lawrence was all but a lock to the Jets. And then, a couple wins near the last couple weeks of football, moved us from the 1 to the 2. And, there were media pundits out there saying Trevor Lawrence should stay in school if he ends up being the first round pick and the Jets are on the clock. And, he anywhere but the Jets was what people were saying. And now you look at their situation with Urban Meyer getting fired and all the drama that you hear from players, that have been, expressing their personal situations and incidents that occurred within the locker room and how dysfunctional things were over there. And, the coach didn't, I think when they went to Cleveland or they played a game in Ohio, he stayed and the team flew back. And it's just weird, bizarre things that happened over there. And it's just kind of funny how it's easy. It's like low-hanging fruit, as they would say, to pick on the Jets in our scenario just because we haven't been that productive throughout the years. And, I just am curious to wonder what the opinions are of those individuals that claim that our situation was so bad. I mean, if we had to just summarize the reason why the Jets stink this year, it would be that they don't have enough above-average talent on this roster on both sides of the ball. And that's easy to say, looking at our draft pick scenarios and how many free agent signings have just not played out well to our favor throughout the last few seasons. So, some poor decision-making and below-average talent. And then you've got rookie coaches and abysmal of injuries and things like that. So, at least it was more of like football-related things that happened with the Jets, not internal, interior drama that was, dismantling the progress of the team. I know that there was a situation to where even Trevor Lawrence had to question why one of their top running backs was not getting enough playing time, and that was James Robinson that Trevor Lawrence was referring to. And I believe Carlos Hyde is on the team, and he goes back to, his days with Urban Meyer, I believe at Ohio State. So, Urban picks his favorites, and, even guys of lesser talent, were getting more opportunities. And how familiar is that with Gase and the Frank Gore situation where we have young 25, 24-year-old running backs being replaced by a 37-year-old running back? When you're dealing with these coaches that have massive egos and, it's my way or the highway kind of mentality, and they put horse blockers on, sometimes, the biggest problem is the man in the mirror, and that's clearly the situation with Urban Meyer. And, it's just kind of interesting to see how things have played out from when people were talking about that stuff last year and now, into week 15 of the 2021 season, here we are clapping back at all those people that said our situation was so much worse. And, right now, I think we do have stability in our coaching staff. I just think that once we get better talent and, Joe Douglas gets another draft and we have a slew of picks coming up. So we should most definitely see some better football here. I know Blog Talk is talking to us here, Dylan, but we'll continue to cover the game for a few more minutes here. So, we're looking at a Jacksonville team that has struggled, very similar to the Jets situation. But, let's talk a little bit of X's and O's here. What are the key matchups that you see from the defensive side that we have to make note of from the Jacksonville team? Which players stand out to you from Jacksonville that the Jets should really try to, take out of the game plan?
Well, first and foremost, I think it starts with Josh Allen, the edge rusher. I'm not going to put the label of good or bad Josh Allen on him like they did in the draft because, quite frankly, both of them are good now. So Josh Allen is the number one guy that I think you have to take away. And then another player that I think could become a factor, but also one that I think that Jets fans should try to watch a little bit more when the Jets are on offense is Myles Jack. He's a name that's been in the league for a little bit, but he knows this defense. The Jaguars' defense is not too dissimilar from what the Jets run or what the Jaguars used to run in the past. So there's a chance, I've heard rumors that Myles Jack might, become available if the Jaguars let him go or potential trade candidate in the offseason. So I think that even if he's not making plays in this game specifically, the Jets should look at him as somebody who could come in and help the second level of their defense, which we've been pounding the table, needs more speed. So I think he's one to watch for next year as well.
And to take a look at, some other players, I had already mentioned one, James Robinson. He's one of their best running backs that they have. Definitely need to make sure that we keep him limited because, given the opportunity, the Jaguars will run the ball as much as they possibly can. And if you've been looking at this Jets defense as of late, we've been, putting a lot of, running backs in the top tier week in, week out, as far as the numbers are concerned. Duke Johnson runs for, I had it right in front of me. I know he ended up with over 100 yards on the day.
I think it was 107 or 102.
Right. And the week prior, we had
107.
Kamara go off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
if Duke Johnson can run for 107, what can James Robinson run for if Duke hit us for 107?
Yeah. This defense needs slap in the face, and they need to wake up and get back to showing themselves and their fans that they can, go back to that old, style of, stuffing the run, shutting it down. I miss those games to where, things wouldn't look so great in the first half, but then the defense clicks in the second half and keeps the team, shut out or possibly, to one score, or only field goals. That's the kind of defense that I really would like to see down the line. So James Robinson's a big one there. I'm looking at your notes here. Marvin Jones is a savvy veteran. So, they will have to make sure that they keep him in check. With Michael Carter, our nickelback, being in question due to COVID, it'll be interesting to see, who comes in and picks up the slack out of that area. I do feel a little bit more confident with Eccles and Bryce Hall, right now. So, Eccles comes in and shows, right off the bat that, he deserves to be one of the starters on this team. 3 pass deflections, 1 pick six. Bryce Hall, even though he has been penalized a couple times over the last couple weeks, I still think that he shows all the traits of being that cornerback one. So there's youth and there's some good prospects that we have at the defensive backfield. Just hopefully that continues to, the meter continues to keep going up and those guys don't have any setbacks because I like what I'm seeing right now from that group. But I am curious to see if it's going to be Guidry or somebody else that comes in to fill in that role for Carter. And, I'm not too sure because I know that Trevor, is an athletic guy. We were struggling again with Tua with the RPO and read option kind of stuff. I don't know how much that's implemented into the Jacksonville scheme, now that they have, an interim head coach in place and, who knows if they're changing some things, philosophically with their playbook. I haven't watched enough Jacksonville games to say, what we can be expecting. But clearly if they do decide to run some RPO, we've seen, how much the Jets can struggle against that style of offense. Even though Tua did have a couple turnovers in this game, if you look at what he's done over the last, 6 games, Miami's got a 6-game winning streak. During this time, Tua's thrown for 80% on his completion percentage, which is just absurd. And they've tailored the offense to their quarterback's play style. Amazing concept.
Right.
Rather than doing the square peg and a round hole kind of philosophy here, they're actually calling plays that fit the needs of their guy. And I think that that's something that maybe the Jets should look at, to doing moving forward, and tailor their needs to Zach Wilson's talents. And as he becomes more confident, you can implement more things and go with, the direction of your offensive scheme that you want to deploy, rather than trying to just force feed him, what your scheme is, build on what he's good at, kind of create the offense around his traits, and then continue to stack and expand your playbook once he gets a better understanding of, how this whole thing works. So maybe that's something that, the Jets are aware of. If they're not, I hope that happens soon, because we've got 3 weeks left of football here, and we would like to see, some sort of glimpse of hope going into the 2022 season. Let's see here, Dylan. We're almost at the 1 hour mark. Covered a lot tonight. Anything else that, maybe we should mention before we decide to call it a night?
No, just other than the fact that it's 7:20 on a Tuesday night and 2 football games just kicked off. It's a normal day, It's very strange having the NFL on the Tuesday.
Yeah, and this is for the fantasy players of the world. This is crunch time. For our teams, and some people's seasons are coming to an end. Some people are moving on to next week, and hopefully, winning their leagues to bring home their championship and their bragging rights going into the next season. And I for one am looking at all these games, football every night. It's like, oh my God, if you're a football fanatic, this is kind of exciting, but the reason why it's happening is not very exciting. But
right,
the bad here, I guess.
Yeah,
because the situation right now is nothing to smile about. But try to have fun with it. We're under a month left of football here, and as much as we may be frustrated with what's going on with this team, believe me, 2-3 weeks after the season's over, we're going to be missing this thing like we always do. Us
absolutely.
Can't get enough of this football team, so we keep coming back. We're loyal. That's what we do. So, all right, Dylan. So, any big plans coming up for Christmas? You doing anything fun, or just kind of kicking it with the family?
Well, we have 2 birthdays in the family that are right around Christmas, so it's more than just a Christmas celebration in our house. It's going to be, a big celebration for 2 birthdays and Christmas. So we got a lot going on, big family events coming up. How about you?
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah. I've got some party with some friends for Christmas Eve, meeting up with family on Christmas Day, which is great. Happy birthday to my sister, Nicole. Love you, kiddo. Today is her birthday, so figured I'd give her a shout-out since you had just mentioned the birthday thing. And, my mom will probably, say, why didn't you mention your sister? So there we have it. Happy birthday to you, little one. Look forward to, seeing the family and celebrating, one of the better times of the year. Just wanted to throw this out there. Forgot to do the plug for Miles Social. Thank you for our sponsor, Miles Social. For anyone that's looking to improve their social media status with their business, please go to milessocial.com and see what they can do for you. I also got a message from Marty Lyons, former Jet from the Sac Exchange. It's that time of the year where the Marty Lyons Foundation is putting together their wish foundation for children, and they're doing a lot of great things for the community. So if you want to get involved, I just retweeted it on my Twitter account. You can also look up Marty Lyons on Twitter, or you could Google him and look up Marty Lyons Foundation. It's a great cause. So don't miss out. Please be sure. This is the time where, a lot of people are in need, and there's a lot of fortunate people in the world, so let's not forget about them. And, just what I'm saying here, we love Marty Lyons, and he's come on the show in the past, so just want to take a moment to talk about him so that if the fans aren't aware, and you want to get involved with their foundation, please go ahead and do so. All right, Dylan.
Awesome.
It's been a great night. We got another show in the books here. Maybe the Jets will give us one more victory show that we could do. Fingers crossed on this side here. But I hope you have a happy and Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everybody. We will see you next week, Tuesday night, 6:30 p.m. Jet Nation Radio. Don't forget to go to jetnation.com and sign up. Get involved in the forums, #1 NFL forum in the NFL. So everybody, be well, stay safe, and as always, let's go Jets.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Jet Nation Radio. Glenn is at AceFan23, and Alex is at NYJetsLife24.
Until next time,
go Jets!